Hi. Oh, so guess who just got done with the sorry, just who got done with the RWBY Volume 6 finale. I can't freak out too much right now. Yet, English words. It was the cliffhanger for the episode before was very sort of tense and like makes you filled with dread, with concern, and this episode was mainly quite positive, apart from like, you know, like they dealt with the Leviathan and then they flew away. So, and I think that makes sense to me, because like in a TV show sort of way, then that's a bit of an odd choice, because the finale is always meant to be like the most dramatic, heartbreaking thing. For most shows, obviously that doesn't work for every single show, and I'm not going to be like, you must do this as a TV show, because that's very constrictive. But it was like a very sort of odd choice, so it was resolved like fairly quickly. But like, I know that when RWBY comes out, like in DVD format, it comes out like a big long film. See, I've never bought a RWBY volume on DVD, because I only found out about this show last year, and I didn't want to spend loads of money on the DVDs, because like, I need money for other things, uni things, art supplies things. So I was like, I'll just wait until later, you know, I can wait, they're free online. So I haven't quite watched them as a film, though I did binge some of the earlier volumes to an extent, but not usually not all of them in one day. You know what I mean? But I think there's probably something that will feel much more natural in this DVD film format, when you don't have to wait a week with that cliffhanger, and it's just something that naturally progresses, because you have a week to build expectations of like this really action-packed, tense thing where someone might die, and this episode turned out to be really quite positive and hopeful, and like a lot easier than expected. And excuse me, it's that's not necessarily a bad thing. I just think it'll make sense much more in that format than in this one, which is okay. Like, it sounds like I'm really hating on this episode, but I actually really like this episode. It had quite a few things that I liked. Like characters being there for each other, being very supportive, which I really like, because I don't know, like the way that some like media depicts friendships can be very off, and you know, like there'll be characters which will be like, I'll die for you, but then they like won't ever hug or hang out or have a conversation or tease each other or anything, and this group feels so cohesive despite everything going on, you know, and they'll just like hug each other and say that they're proud of each other. And I am very much pro the friendship is a type of love sort of philosophy. Like, you know, you care about them quite a lot, and you feel a lot of affection and respect for them. Like, that is love, basically, isn't it? You know, to define it quite simply. And so to see these characters act like that is very nice and heartwarming, because they should love and support each other, especially when they know any one of them can just die. You know, volume 3 was a rough time, but you know, it was necessary with the tonal shift that they wanted, and people do die all the time, and you know, you don't always get to prepare. It can happen when you least expect it, so it's, you know, always a good idea to tell people that you care about them when you can. And yeah, I like that they just do that. They just support each other, like some with and without words, you know. I'm so proud of them. They're doing so well. I love them. Oh, I was sort of hoping for a bees sort of talk, but I suppose there's only a limited amount of time, and I guess they can have that in the next volume. The next volume is going to definitely have to have a lot of psychological stuff carrying over, because, you know, I don't think Blake and Yang's issues are immediately going to solve, and obviously I am very much pro Bumblebee slow burn. So I would like that to carry over a bit into this new part of the arc, this new arc coming up with Atlas. Obviously we're going to get a lot of stuff for Weiss, and Weiss has always been a really interesting character. I wasn't one of those people who hated her right at the beginning. I thought she was quite comical. You know, like, you know, there are just some fictional characters who, like, they're kind of arseholes, and they're really kind of narcissistic, and in real life you would hate them, but when they're in a TV show or something, they're just really funny to you. Like, I don't think I would get on with Tony Stark in real life, but I do like watching films, like with Iron Man in. I think his character can be quite interesting at times, and or fun. You know, like there are some characters where, like, in real life they would be unbearable, but in a show or whatever, they're just fun to watch. And that was my relationship with Weiss for quite some time. And then she got a lot of development, and like my like for her started to become more genuine, and she started to feel more genuine, and that was a really interesting sort of development. And this has been in the cards for a while, the whole her going back to Atlas, you know, like as soon as she got away, near the beginning of volume 5, everyone was like, when's she going to go back? And when are we going to see Winter? Because we all want to see Winter. Rooster Teeth knows this, they're going to have to show us Winter, you know? I don't think they would want to risk the fans' torment if they were like, oh yeah, by the way, Winter died or something off screen. You know, they're gonna have to show her at least once. And I'm just looking forward to all the things they can do in Atlas. For everyone, really. Okay, we can break this down a bit. I'll try and do this as quickly as possible, because this could take a long time, and I do not have a long time, so let's go. Okay, so first off, I'm going to start with the shortest and sweetest one. Blake and Yang have time to sort of recuperate in a setting which is heavily fortified and have less grim. They're able to sort of talk through everything that happened and try to start to process it, and if they ever do a dance, there really can be Beauty and the Beast. I would love that. Also, if that does happen, I would see Blake in a suit and Yang in a dress, or them both in suits. Come on, Rooster Teeth, pull through. Do it for us. And obviously we have, I'll get to Weiss last, we have RWBY, and I really love how they've started to develop RWBY a lot more and made her feel like a much more complicated and genuine character. And just whatever they do with RWBY sort of depends on how they want to treat Penny's death, I suppose. Like, Penny did die, and it was horrible, and people don't usually mention it as much unless they want to make a quarters joke, which I do not find funny. Like, the first time I sort of like laughed, and now I'm just like, okay, that's enough now, you know. But yeah, I think it depends on however they want to treat that, because if she's back, then they have to do that in a way that doesn't quite feel cheap. So maybe she doesn't remember them, or maybe she's completely different, and that'd be a lot of angst, and they'd have to do that in a way which doesn't necessarily torture Ruby. I'm not like angst for angst's sake kind of person. Like, there are lots of stories I like which have quite minimal angst for most of the way through, and the characters feel varied and genuine. Like Little Witch Academia, like, only has angst quite near the end, honestly. And even before that, all the characters felt like they were sort of like not quite going through like proper crises, because, you know, 16-year-old schoolgirls, but, well, not to say that that isn't hard. I've been there. Not in a magic school, but, you know, it's extremely hard. But not to the extent of a crisis that the characters are directly affected by this crisis. You know, when you don't want to spoil something because you want people to watch it, but you want to use it as a reference point. It's tricky. But yeah, they didn't. It wasn't quite. Some had more direct consequences of this than others, and some really felt it, and it was a rough time. If you were bonded to those characters, it was really sad. But that's where I had minimal angst, and it is one of my favourite shows ever. And I think, like, just things like that, like, there are lots of things which don't have to be angst heavy. You can just use it when it's needed, you know. I think it's like seasoning, you know. Like, if you put a bit in, it's great, and, you know, flavour is very important, so you should put a fair, like, you know, depending on your taste, you should put like a fair amount in. But if you put too much in, you can't take it back out, and then you're just stuck there with this mess, and everyone's a bit uncomfortable. That is angst in a story. We don't want grimdark here. But yeah, I think I think Ruby has already stepped up with responsibility and such, so that would be that could really go either way. But I would like someone in the universe, literally anyone, to say anything about Penny's death, because it has not been mentioned. It's been alluded to with you'll be combat ready in no time, and then the look of Ruby's face just falling, which was very sad. Like, thanks for that, Richard Steve. But yeah, they only mentioned Pyrrha, and I'm not saying that like to say that Pyrrha should have got less attention, because I think that she got about the right amount of attention, maybe slightly less than I would have liked, but, you know, I think it's fine with their limited time and resources making an animated show, which is extremely difficult. I just think that Penny should have got mentioned more, and I think this would be the perfect time for that, because where else would they mention it? It would also be interesting to sort of, if this place isn't as grim heavy but is villain heavy, or antagonist heavy I should say, because I don't know if everyone's involved here is going to be quite a villain. I think Atlas is complicated with morally grey characters like Ironwood there, but having something to fight that she can't really just shoot or stab is going to be interesting. And I don't say that to make Ruby sound dumb, because she's not dumb. It's just the things that she fights, she generally directly fights, and she'll have to adapt to something completely new, you know? Like, Ruby hasn't got close to killing a person yet. She might do. You know, like, Rooster Teeth did it. Like, they let Blake and Yang kill Adam in self-defense. And I think RWBY would be justified in killing someone in self-defense. You know, I'd be for that. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see that change of pace at any rate. To strategize in a completely different way, because I think Atlas is probably one of the places less likely to be completely overrun with Grim. Like Mistral wasn't, you know? And Atlas has mechs and is floating in the sky. So that immediately gets rid of quite a few Grim, you know? They have a lot of defensive they have a lot of defensive technology, which most places that we've seen have sort of tried to combat with. Everywhere that's combated it has done so by either being like, well, either technology or natural barriers mainly. I think Mistral had mountains and stuff. So that's, if we went in and all the streets were filled with Grim and everyone was screaming, I'd be fairly like for the entire series, I'd be fairly surprised, but like I'd be into it if they could make it work, you know. But, I mean, they did say they were positioned like they were under attack. We don't know if that was defensive to try and keep people out, or if there's actually a legit threat in there. We can find out. That would be fine. Then of course we've got Weiss, and Weiss is like, come on, Rooster Teeth, you know what we want. Like, her entire family has effects on her and can develop her. Got her dad, who's evil McEvil, rich capitalist, who, you know, exploits fairness, brands fairness. It's a villain who, like, we don't see on RWBY, that we've seen in other shows, but not in RWBY, and it's, I want him to be taken out, you know. I do want him to die. Like, he is also an abuser. Like, out of all the characters in RWBY, and RWBY has a lot of characters, I would say that Adam and Sharks are, like, the worst, you know, like, morally speaking. They're definitely the most hateable in my point of view. They're too close to real world evil. Like, Adam is an actual abuser, you know, an abusive ex-boyfriend, which is like, I can't quite get that out of my head, and it's too relatable in a way that's like, I think if you can relate a villain to the real world with the bad things they do, it's easier to hate them. Like, it's harder for me to sort of, you know, like, I can't really hate Emerald, for example. You know, like, I can see that she's been manipulated, and the things that she's done, we've not quite seen her physically kill someone, although it's definitely been implied, and she was partially responsible for Tuxon's death. And she was involved with what happened between Pyrrha and Penny, but like, there's not really a real world equivalent unless like you're drugging someone's drink to make them do that, I guess, would be the closest thing. But you won't be able to guarantee that result. It's, yeah. So like, I can't hate Emerald because I can't think of that as like a real sort of crime in this sort of setting. So I just sort of see her as this outlier, morally grey character who can be redeemed if Rooster Teeth, you know, on my side there. But meanwhile, like, shucks, there are real companies out there exploiting people, and often some form of minority. Like, let's be real, like people of colour. We know that the fairness discrimination is meant to be sort of kind of an allegory for racism, and it's not entirely accurate, but like, I can't really say how to correct them because it was something I wouldn't write because I'm white. I wouldn't write stuff about racism because I can't experience that. But yeah, like Shocked is a very sort of real world sort of villain, because there are people doing there are like capitalist people exploiting people. You know, they're like the rich exploiting the poor. It's like it's a narrative that's sort of been done, but this is much more direct because he's like an actual leader of this huge company, like shutting down smaller companies and treating its workers horribly. And not only that, but he is also an abusive father. Like, he slapped Weiss and God knows what else. I mean, didn't he make her fight the knight? You know, because she has that white knight summoned because she fought it in the white trailer, and it gave her an actual scar. Like, he's not a good dad. He's not a good dad. Honestly, parents in RWBY. Thank God for the belladonnas, right? But yeah. So he's a clear antagonist. Winter could be interesting. I've seen some different theories. Some people want her to be the Winter Maiden. I don't personally. I think that I mean, the show could probably do it if they wanted to. You know, like pull a Raven on it, but I don't know. I think it'd be cool to have a new character. And I know I complain about RWBY getting new characters a lot, but trying to think of like candidates for the Winter Maiden can be quite difficult. You know, trying to figure out, well, if this character at this power level, why didn't they do this earlier? You know, sort of thing. It can be a bit of a mess, so it might be easier to bring in a new character. Because while I was like skeptical of them bringing in new characters before, then they gave us Maria. So like, you bring in as many new characters as you want, Rooster Teeth. You know, if you do as good of a job as you have on Maria, then I am 100%, you know, just going to follow you there. Yeah, it also depends on if they want to make Winter like a kind of double agent or Morally Grey. I've seen theories like that where like, oh, how did Roman Torchwick get that paladin? You know, that big sort of mech thing in Volume 2. It's like, oh well, someone must have given him that from the Atlas military. Like, who do we know from the Atlas military? Well, it wouldn't have been Ironwood. Ironwood was, you know, trying to stop this, and we know this. Maybe it was Winter, you know. I've seen those theories. And they kind of make me sad, because, like, that is a legit question, like, how did he get it? Like, I could write it off as he stole it, but at the same time, something in the back of my mind's like, you know, that would be interesting. There'd be some angst potential as well. Like, if they do it right, it would carry on this theme of not being able to trust people. And then I'm like, but no, we love Winter. We don't want her to be bad. It made me sad. You know, Winter, like, she hasn't been in the show for very long, but she certainly made an impression in, like, with me and the rest of the fandom. I don't think I've met anyone who's been like, do you know who I hate? Winter. I've met people who've been like, sure, she's okay, but I've never met anyone who's like aggressively hated Winter. So yeah, it could go either way, but I would rather see her be proud of Weiss and her maybe help get them back into Atlas, you know. Like, if they want some exposition, you know, Maria could do it, but Winter could also do it. It would also help to develop the Sneath family more, like Jacques as well, some character insight, because if he's an abusive father, then, you know, it might have been just Weiss, but that seems fairly unlikely to me. Like, Winter decided on a career path that would force her to be away from her family, essentially. That very much seems like she was trying to escape. So, that's what makes sense to me. If she was also a victim of this and she had to leave, and her, like, I can't be there to protect you anymore. There was no one to protect her when she was younger. Which is a sad thought, and now I feel bad for speaking that into existence. It also means we'd get to see other characters interact with Winter who we haven't seen before, unless they split up. There could be some more Crow and Winter rivalry, and it seems fairly likely that Rooster Teeth will do that because they know how many people ship it. I don't ship it myself. I headcanon Winter as a lesbian, so, but I wouldn't mind just some comedic antics of them being like, "Oh, it's you again." That could be quite fun. But yeah, there's also Whitley, who he's set up to be this really slimy, manipulative character, but at the same time he's probably like Oscar's age and has also been manipulated himself by Jacques. So they could make him into an antagonist, or they could redeem him. We'll just have to wait and see. We haven't got much content with him in, much screen time. You know, we got what sort of made sense at the time, but I think we definitely need to see him again when we see Weiss's family. And Willow Schnee is, well, she's the mum. I think RWBY is at a level where it's dark enough that they could try and explore this a bit more. We've had multiple characters in sort of abusive situations now, and she's an alcoholic, and Crow is an alcoholic, which has been touched upon a fair few times, which is very much good, because you don't want alcoholism romanticized, you know, like, not to say that if you're an alcoholic you're like a bad person in any way. I understand that is very much a kind of condition, and it's, you know, generally because you have something that makes you predisposed to addiction, or you tried to sort of, something happened and you tried to sort of self-medicate or something like that, and it went wrong and you got addicted. You know, it's not like a character flaw. Crow definitely has character flaws, but I wouldn't say they're because of his alcoholism in any way. I would say that there's just a sort of Venn diagram. Like, he drinks more when he is more self-destructive. So like the self-destructive is like a flaw, and the alcoholism isn't. It's just the alcoholism is like an effect of that flaw, sort of thing. You understand what I mean? I just thought I'd point that out. You know? Because I don't want to judge people for being ill. I am ill myself. Not in that way. But, you know, I just thought I'd point that out. Just so we're on the same page. But, yeah, Willow is kind of a very tragic character, and I would like to see her. One of my issues with Volume 4 is that I kind of wish that, I'm fine with like the butler helping Weiss escape, but I think it would have been cool if we had seen, like, there was a bit where Weiss was sneaking and she made a noise and Willow saw her, and then Weiss froze, and then Willow just let her go, like moved out the way of the door or something. Or like picked up her bag for her and put it in her hands, Moana style, but yeah, I think I'd like to see her. There's not much to her in order for me to really say what I want, but it's clear through her about how horrible it must have been living in the Snee household, which is part of Weiss's experiences and why she is the way she is. So I'd very much like to see her at least once, or have her mentioned properly. Oof. It's a long talk on Atlas. There's also probably going to be some fairness discrimination there, because we know Atlas is like probably fairly racist McRacist, you know, against the fairness. So it's going to be yikes. Blake doesn't have her bow anymore, so rough times ahead, you know. Ooh, we can get some angst there. And yeah, speaking of like no bow, I do kind of hope that someone get new outfits. I know that Blake's definitely going to have to get a new weapon at any rate, because Gamble Shroud is wrecked and they left the remains of it in the clearing. So she's going to have to go shopping. It'd be nice if she got some clothes, like, so she wasn't cold. I very much love her current outfit, but like, maybe like a proper thick coat or something, because however banging that crop top looks, it's very cold in her. And I'm concerned, you know, I don't want her to be cold. I very much would like lots of characters to get new outfits, to be fair. Like, I always get concerned for Ren's feet because of those open-toed shoes. Like, aren't your toes cold? And like, aren't you concerned that if something falls on your foot, it might just destroy all your toes? You lose a lot of heat through your feet. Ren must be like freezing cold. I don't know if it's like a weird thing to worry about when they're fighting like demons, but I just want them all to be okay. Yeah, like, speaking of, Cinder and Neo, new outfits, new ride, it's all very nice. I'm just thinking on their outfits. I think they are sort of, I don't know, slightly more revealing than I'd sort of hoped for, but they're not as like, I'd say that some of the early RWBY outfits were fairly fan servicey, and these don't feel quite as much like that, so I'm sort of like, I'll let it slide. It does sort of feel that, like, that way to me, where like, some of like the Volume 2 outfits, like, I really like the sort of aesthetics, but at the same time, I'm just like, Yang, are you comfortable? Are you good? And obviously I'm not saying that in a I'm slut-shaming characters kind of way. I'm saying that in a whoever's designing female characters, make sure you sort of make it even kind of way, you know. Like, unless you're gonna draw like a guy wearing a top that shows where his pecs meet, you know, his cleavage, or a very like extremely short shorts or something, and like, why do it to a girl, you know? I'm just saying, like, make it fair is what I'm saying. So yeah, I don't know, I like the basic aesthetics anyway. Cinder's I'm kind of missing the red in her colour scheme, but at the same time, like, she's on the run, so there's bigger things to worry about. I kind of like the edgy colour scheme. She's got an eye patch, which is, it's cool, kind of piratey. It doesn't quite hide her scars, and I'm into that, because I really hate the trope of someone has scars and they are ugly, and that's how you can tell they're a villain. It's like, scars don't make you ugly, you know. Like, leave them alone. Like, I'm very much judge Cinder because she murders people, over judge people because she has a trait that is considered ugly in the Western beauty standards, you know. Like, yeah, so the scar's kind of peeking out. I like that, that's good. I like some good scars. Yeah, and black and gold do go together really well. It's one of my favourite colour combinations. I think black and white is really nice. But I think, as Blake proves, then sometimes you need something to accent it, like the soft purple or the gold of the buttons. You know, just a little bit to try and bring it together and make it feel more real and to pop out. You know, like, colour is key. It really does make, like, I think black and gold is much more vibrant and eye-catching than black and white. And it's also got a warmth to it. Yeah, I got a bit artist brain instead of writer brain on there, but you know, it's nice. I do like the sort of Neo's aesthetics. Trying to sort of blend the Roman with the Neo, and I like that. That's exactly the kind of vibe I'd want from her outfit, that she got a bit of Roman in there. Because obviously, as her song One Thing proves, Roman was one of, if not the only, sort of person that she really had and or cared about, so it would make sense that she'd want to honour them, you know, which is nice. I like it when villains are complicated enough to mourn each other when they go down like a hero does. You know, it makes them feel more like real people and not like cartoon villains. And I'm not saying that to insult animated shows, because I think you know by now that I love animated shows. I love cartoons. But it makes them feel much more like actual people. Because if you lost someone that you liked having around, you would probably be upset. And it is reminiscent of the things like Juniper and Ruby got new things added to their outfits reminiscent of Pyrrha. It might be harder to spot in some people than others, but like the way that, for example, Ruby's cloak fastens is reminiscent to Pyrrha's sort of skirt. And for example, we know about Sean's thing, but like Renna's sort of like a little red string ribbon thing going around like here-ish. And in some screenshots you can see it, and obviously red isn't like not like a main part of his colour scheme, so I think it's meant to reference Pyrrha, you know, things like that. So I really appreciate it on the villain side. And yeah, I'm glad we checked back up with the villains, because as soon as anyone's like, you know, oh we'll just like, you know, it's fine, we'll check up with them later, and they don't say anything about them for episodes and episodes, you're just like, what are they planning? What are they doing? Concern. And yeah, they're definitely planning, they're definitely doing. I am very, yeah, I am concerned. I don't know what else to say about it, but we also got to, I like how we see Neo's semblance in work. And not only does it disguise herself and put illusions of herself in spaces, it can cover the surface of an object and create an illusion like that, which is really interesting. Because we haven't seen her directly do that. Like, we could have assumed, but she can physically do that. That's been in the seen in the show, even if it seems to take a lot out of her and doesn't quite, you know, hold up 100%. Yeah, it just goes a bit further and further to sort of show more and more things about these characters, because it's good to be able to show, don't tell, and to be able to reveal things about characters without physically saying them. And with Neo, she cannot physically say them, so that's a good touch. But I very much appreciated, I'm trying to think of the last few things to say about this episode before I go and eat today. I very much like the Leviathan design. I said it before, but we got a bit more of it now. You can see the kind of Godzilla inspiration with the sort of its attack, that sort of beam, because Godzilla is like the big bad kaiju. Like, you think, you're like, oh, okay, kaiju, giant Japanese monster, Godzilla. Like, that'll probably be the first one that comes to most people's minds, unless you watched Pacific Rim without ever hearing of Godzilla. But like, that's a bit less likely. I like it because it's got like multiple sort of prehistoric and aquatic creatures sort of put together. I got like Ichthyosaur and Spinosaurus vibes, which is probably my dinosaur nerd's self coming out, but I happen to love dinosaurs and other prehistoric creatures, mainly those based on land, but I do know a tiny bit about prehistoric marine reptiles as well. And that sort of reminded me of an ichthyosaur, which isn't quite accurate because ichthyosaurs were built more like reptilian dolphins, if that makes sense. Like, if you Google an ichthyosaur, you'll get what I mean. They're kind of like reptilian dolphins. They're quite fish-like. And Spinosaurus, well, a dinosaur which probably walked on two legs, are the best sort of remains we had of it were destroyed during one of the world wars, I believe. But it was very large, and I know, like, oh, but T-Rex is large. It made T-Rex look like nothing, I can tell you. It was a very large thing, very long at least, and it had a sort of crocodilian kind of head and extended vertebrae coming out of its back. You can't see my arm coming out, but like vertebrae coming out of its back. And so it probably either had a sail or a hump, and people are going to argue about that until the end of time, because obviously we don't know, because fat isn't preserved, or like if it is, it's extremely rare. So that makes sense for like the Leviathan sort of like face shape, tail shape, and the sort of sail it had on its back. And the fact they walked on two legs. It's good. It's sort of like Godzilla is an extremely good monster, and I love the design, but I think if you wanted to make it feel a bit more sort of realistic, I say talking about a giant water demon, then it sort of makes sense to me to sort of draw from those inspirations. I'm very satisfied with that monster design. What points have I missed? Let's see, this is why I should do things in order, but I get excited. And then I can't. Okay. Oh yeah. Ozpin returned briefly, and there was Summer and Cordovan's actions. Okay, let's go with Cordovan first. Is Cordovan redeemed? I still think she's a bad person that did a nice thing, but I don't know. She's not as evil as like Adam and that, but like she's still like probably a fancy racist and said some things which did sound fancy xenophobic, and did not listen to the protagonist until it was crystal clear that not listening to the protagonist would kill everyone, and intervened to do something that she should have done anyway because it was her job. So as you can tell, I'm kind of biased against her, but I suppose it was nice to sort of see, I don't know, something like the Atlas military do something, literally anything that was good, even if that individual was not good. Ozpin came back, which is interesting. So he has been watching them this entire time, where he's been sulking in Oscar's head, which is a funny mental image, because Ozpin basically just yelled, "I'm going to my room, no one come in," and shut the door and just stayed in there for a while and peeked through the keyhole. That's the mental image I'm getting, because that's kind of what happened. He shut himself away, but he's been watching them, and he's only came out to save Oscar and so himself, which is... I definitely don't think that Ozpin's an evil character, but I think he's a dick, you know? Which makes sense, you know? As, like, I think the writers do a great job with him, you know? He would be, you know? Empathy is kind of weird for him when he's been living for so long, and for certain reasons. So yeah, I understand Yang being angry with him because, like, mood. But it's interesting to think that he could sort of take control while also sort of being in the back seat. So it kind of feels like Oscar and Ozpin's consciousnesses might be starting to sort of blur at the edges. And I don't want that, because I want Oscar to stay my sweet precious boy. But it's bound to happen eventually, so that's sad. We've got that mess to look forward to. With Oscar he bought a brand new outfit, and like, for himself, he wanted to feel more like himself, and now he's going to become less and less like himself. So I'm fine. This is okay. This is hunky dory. This is all good. Poor boy, my poor son. It's going to be okay. At least Ozpin can start being useful again now. But, yeah, and then, like, last but not least... Oh wait, there's the after credits scene. I'll have to talk about that afterwards. Damn. We saw Summer. We saw Summer in Ruby's brain, and that was a lovely little beautiful, just brief thing. I really appreciated that. She's so beautiful. It's sad sometimes that people forget about, like, who Summer was. We haven't really got much about her, but I think people mainly think about the fact that she died and stuff about is like were Crow and her together, and is that how Ruby was born and Ty wasn't Ruby's dad, which I don't like that theory, to be honest, and it kind of puts me off the ship, which is sad because I like ships and shipping. We haven't got much about her character, but it kind of she was a mum, and she was a badass fighter. You know, she was probably a silver-eyed warrior, as that screenshot, that someone's going to screenshot that, and there's probably made multiple videos saying about how she was a silver-eyed warrior, and that's where Ruby, like, gets it from, and that Summer was, like, a top, like, the Grim Reaper in her day or something. Just like, so, I suppose there's probably a few videos of that right now, so I don't need to, I wouldn't make one, but let's just assume that's canon at this point. I really want to find out more stuff about Team Stark, and this is just, maybe this is helping to hint towards it, but I don't know. I want them all to fit it in. It can be difficult because, like, while they have Crow there, Raven's disappeared, Ty's planting sunflowers, and yeah, I mean, like, Raven's gone. We're not entirely sure where she is, and Summer's dead. So, like, yeah, I want a lot of Team Stark content because I really love that. There's so much potential there. So I'm just hoping we get that. And yeah, then we get the after credits scene. Salem making flying monkeys, and gorillas are not monkeys; they are apes. Like, I know this, but that is a fictional. That's a fictional character / being that the writers alluding to. She is a witch, and she's giving primates wings, and they act as their minions. So, flying monkeys. It's nice to see the dynamic duo again, and to have them seem conflicted, because obviously, like, I want them redeemed, I want them to leave. It was nice to see Hazel again. I like him as well. He's probably more likely to die and be redeemed, or be redeemed through death, but like, he's valid, he's good. It's nice to see, I mean, with Hazel's line and the way that the whole thing was themed, with the focus sort of being on what Salem was doing, it sort of seems to be implying that Salem's going to have more agency in the next volume, which is interesting, because Tyrion and Watts have already been pushed over to sort of mess with them. So that's, yeah, there might be a lot of having to deal with villains in this in the next volume. There might, I don't know, from we know there will be no Grimm and just villains, because we've got the whole Snee family, and we've got Cinder and Neo, and there's Tyrion and Watts, and Salem might also be wanting to get involved. So it feels like there's a lot that's going on, but like, if they do as good of a job in the next volume as they have done with this volume, then like, they're golden, aren't they, really? So yeah, I'm not gonna try and question them on that. Like, they can do it. I know that they can write well. I'm just, all of this, and we still get Jin and her one question and the other relics. There is so much that can go on in this new volume. There's like so much potential where it's like, can everything happen at once? I'm gonna put some faith in the writers. I'm gonna not try to overthink things, at the moment at least. I'm gonna overthink things definitely during the hiatus, but right now I'm just gonna say that they've got a lot of potential plot lines to go down, and I am excited for pretty much all of them. Sorry about this extremely long video that no one's going to watch until the end. I hope you enjoyed it, and my thoughts. If you have any other thoughts, feel free to let me know on the episode or anything. If you've got any theories, just feel free to comment. I hope you enjoyed all of this and the episode itself, and the whole volume, because it was a pretty great volume. And yeah, I'll see you in the next video. I definitely think I'll find something to make a video on, don't you worry. But yeah, have a good day.